I'm going to have a quick chat about priorities today. Priorities based around a story that Jesus told. And it's a really cool story, like most of his are. And it's about this guy. Jesus tells this story about this man that decides that he's going to have a banquet. And so he gets his invitations and he sends them out to everybody. And so they all know that they're invited to this banquet. And then when it comes nearly time for the banquet to be ready, when everything's sort of in place and everything's nearly there, he sends his servant out into the town and starts going around to the people that he's invited to the banquet. And one by one, they all give excuses and they all give reasons why they can't come to the banquet, why it's not the right day for them, why they won't be attending this banquet that this guy wants to bring. And so then he sends his servant back out into the streets. And he says, okay, if you don't want to come to the banquet, then here we go. I want, the homeless people, and I want the sick people, and I want the disabled people, and I want whoever is willing to come to the banquet, the people that wouldn't be seen in society, they can come instead. And they all come and they enjoy this banquet. And the premise behind the story, most of us will know, the premise behind the story is that the banquet that we're being invited to, the banquet is the banquet of the gift of heaven, of the gift of a life that starts now and stretches into all eternity spent with Jesus. And Jesus offers that gift. Jesus offers that feast to everybody who will accept his invitation. But sometimes I guess it's hard to accept that invitation. Sometimes, even if we have accepted the invitation, to live it to its fullest, to be able to want to go to this banquet that Jesus has prepared for us, more than we want anything else, can be a challenge. It can be a challenge which is an ongoing challenge, and which is something that we have to maybe keep revisiting and maybe just keep checking in with. Throughout our walk with Jesus. And we certainly need to check in and decide whether it's what we want to do before we would make that first decision to follow Jesus. And when I was rereading this today, the thing that I found really interesting was the excuses that people gave for not coming to the banquet. And the first excuse that was given, the guy, the servant runs up to the guy and says, come on, it's time to come, you're invited. And the guy said, oh, I'm really sorry, I've just bought a field. I'm going to have to go and look at my field. So what does that mean? Well, I guess that's a picture of where we're tied to our possessions, where we're tied to the place that we live. The ties there that are difficult to break. Because I guess for most of us, for most people, what happens is that you go to school, you maybe get some further education, whatever it is, you get yourself a job. And then you spend the first maybe 20, 30 years of your life getting yourself a house, getting yourself a decent income, getting yourself tied, building up, from the sofa that your auntie might have passed on to you to your own brand new sofa, and getting yourself rooted in the place where you've chosen to live, and then maybe you spend the next 30 years maintaining that. Maybe your life is all around maintaining your possessions, maintaining your house, maintaining the place that you live. It's not unusual. It's what happens to most of us. And there's a couple of things that people have said to me over the years which has really helped. And I remember a story, having a chat with a friend years and years ago, and her and her husband were embarking on this new life where they did feel that God had called them to give up and sell the lovely house that they lived in and move into somewhere rented and start a new business. And I said to her, it must be hard. It must be really hard to give up your own home. And she said, yeah, but she said, I'm not home yet, am I? And it took me a bit of thinking about, but what she was saying was, no, this world is not my home. Heaven is my home. So actually, it doesn't really matter where I live in this world. And I thought, wow, what an amazing outlook. And one that it would do us all well to share, I think, in those ways. And the other thing is about, you know, minimalist living. Somebody, or I read somewhere reasonably recently, and it said if Jesus told you to go, how long would it take you to pack? How tied are we to our possessions? How tied are we to the place that we find ourselves living in? And there's something to be said for a minimalist life, I think, as a Christian. There's something to be said for not holding on to these things that ultimately will be of no use to us whatsoever. And the more lightly we hold on to them, maybe the easier it will become when Jesus asks us to move, or when Jesus asks us to go somewhere else. The second one, the second excuse that was given is the guy says, I've just bought 5 yoke of oxen and I need to go and try them out. And that to me speaks of financial security and financial stability. You know, oxen would have been the equivalent of the car, if you like, the equivalent of how you made your money, how you went to work. He was obviously working with these 5 yoke of oxen, and they were his financial stability, and he didn't want to give up his financial stability to go to the banquet. You know, and there is, again, there's lots spoken about money in the Bible, and money is not a bad thing at all, and it's really good to be wise with how we spend money, with how we use money. But when it gets to the stage that you want to put your security in your money rather than your security in Jesus, then maybe that's going to be something that might stop you from going to the banquet. Maybe that's going to be a challenge. And so again, it does us well to just think about that sometimes, and to just think, well, if Jesus asked me to give up my job in order to serve him in some other way, would worries over financial security be something that stopped me going to the banquet? And then finally, the last excuse that somebody gives, or the last reason that somebody gives, is I just got married, so I can't come. Now, again, I get that, you know, for goodness sake, you've just got married, your family is important to you. You know, your spouse is important to you, your parents are important to you, your children are important to you. It's how it should be. Our families, again, Jesus says that it's beholden on us to take care of our families, to look after our families, to do what we can for them. And you know, and in families where breakdown occurs, you know, Jesus weeps about that. Jesus is sad. Jesus mourns with those whom, for whatever reason, you know, for mainly probably good reason most of the time, for your own stability and security, where breakdown has to occur. You know, but Jesus puts importance on families, and we all should put importance on families. But again, our families shouldn't tie us. Our families shouldn't prevent us from becoming all that we can be in Jesus. Because really, what's the best thing we can do for our families? We can take care of them, we can look after them, we can do our best by our family in whatever way we do. But the most important thing that we can do for our families is make sure that we get to Jesus's banquet ourselves. Because the closer we get to Jesus, excuse me, the closer we get to Jesus, and the more we sit down at Jesus's table with him, and the more we enjoy the life that Jesus has to offer us, the better prepared, the better equipped we will be to care for our families, to pray for our families, to show them what should be the most important thing in their lives too. So if your family or your family's situation is holding you back from taking your seat at Jesus's banquet, then maybe that's something to consider. And maybe that's something to pray about. I think heaven's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be a really interesting place. I mean, for a start off, there's going to be food. And it's maybe not just going to be a quick Mackie D's drive-through. Nothing wrong with a quick Mackie D's drive-through, but this is going to be a banquet, a feast for our senses, a feast for our bodies, a feast for our spirits and our souls. It's going to be an amazing place. And I think we'll be surprised about who's there. But I know that we will be in heaven with those who have held on to this life lightly and who have understood that nothing that this life can give can light a candle towards the joys and the pleasures and the rightness that we will experience when we get to heaven. Let's try and hold on to this life lightly this week. God bless.